Hello, everyone. We are live. This is so exciting. What a way to end this week. I know it's been a long day, but Sara El-Amine is here for all the way from California to pep us up for the last session of the Youth Future Summit 2020. I'm so thrilled, and I'm not even going to spend any time doing a long introduction because we want to make most of her time here. But very quickly, in case you don't know, Sara El-Amine is a progressive senior strategist who is one of the architects of the Obama grassroots movement. She currently works for Lyft, but she was also a founder of Change.org Global Foundation. She's also worked for the Chan Zuckerberg Foundation. She is here to give us her wisdom in the art and science of persuasion and to help us see how we can take these conversations from this week and put them into action. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy this plenary workshop. Thank you, Sara.
Thank you so much, Nina. I am so incredibly thrilled to be with all of you. It is 9 p.m. at night, and I'm just bringing my my Friday morning energy, despite the fact that it's a Thursday night where I am. But this is my favorite session ever to train on. And I've heard so much about the different sessions that you've done over the course of the last few days. I'm very impressed by them. At the crux of everything that all of you are doing through all of your different advocacy, your activism, and the programming you're building is really simple persuasion. So we're going to get into the art and science of persuasion. I'm going to get really dorky with you, and we're going to dig into the neuroscience behind it a few different times. I'm looking in between two screens here, so if you see me look to the side, it might feel a little awkward, but I'm actually looking at a bigger screen where I can see the chat box. So throughout, if you have questions, comments, ideas, I am hanging out in the chat. I'll just say a little hi here, and you can beam in with lots of interactive answers as we go. So I think we should dig right in. And I am going to get us started here. So I want to just really root us in persuasion in our lives, because our goal here is not just to make you a persuasion superstar ninja in the political context. It's to give you universal persuasion skills that you can use in your personal life, that you can use in your professional life, that you can use with your family, you can use with your partner or your significant other, you can use with your dogs. Like, this is all around. These skills are totally transferable. So I want to root us in a non-political context. And I want you to really just think about, center yourself, a time when your opinion changed. Why did it change? Who influenced you? And then when you've got something, you can go ahead and type it in the chat box. We'll have a couple people share. Sometimes when your opinion changed in a non-political context. It's actually kind of hard to think of. We're not hardwired, it turns out, to change our opinions. Books, Ellie says. Okay. Someone you trusted, that's a why. So reading things, hearing from someone I trusted. Culture, that's interesting. So maybe lots of different points of influence. Can someone give an example of a topic or a non-political instance where your opinion changed? I used to hate beetroot, and then my opinion changed when I tried beetroot hummus. So life experience. Deep, immersive, meditative experience. Amazing. All right, cool. So it sounds like folks are identifying lots of different things within you and outside of you that caused that change. I want to steer us now, because we are talking about political topics here. The political world. Think of a time when your opinion changed on a political topic. Why did it change and who influenced you? So maybe you were raised in a home that didn't believe in climate change, and you were exposed to lots of different people or research at school that made your opinion change, or maybe you were raised in a home that was very religious and led to specific political outcomes. Hannah's still on the personal topic. She said, I didn't think I'd like going to movies alone, but then I went alone and it was fine. I did it. Yes. Extinction Rebellion. It's tough to think of specific examples. So there is a phenomenon. I like Nikki's talking about climate change. I think climate change is a big one. Oh, my opinion about Australia changed when I found out about its history of racism. Yep. I changed my political allegiance from LNP to Greens. Amazing. So a lot of what I'm hearing from folks is in political and non-political contexts, there's lots of different inputs that lead to opinion change. But generally, what I'm hearing you say is it's a little tough to think about times when your opinion changed, non-politically or politically. And that's because of a phenomenon called confirmation bias. So when we as humans, and I'm going to explain neurologically why this happens, get locked into a position, we are programmed to stay in that position and to not have flexibility of opinion or of perspective. On average, it takes 7 times of hearing a given thing for a person to learn a fact or figure or a new topic. So you need to hear, the reason that ads try to hit you digitally, they try to hit you on TV, they try to have influence at you, is because you need to see something or hear something 7 different times to change your opinion. Opinion change is incredibly difficult. People spend tens of billions of dollars in marketplaces and economies across the country trying to change opinions politically and non-politically. And all of this is because we are fundamentally just monkeys. We have the most basic, simple brain anatomy when it comes to opinion change. So there's a little part of your brain that's right near your brainstem called the amygdala. And this is the most fundamental part of your brain that is involved in a phenomenon that I'm sure many of you have heard about called fight or flight. And what happens, what used to happen back when we were really simple sort of hunter-gatherers, is that a lion would come charging at us, and we didn't have time to go through the complicated thought process of thinking, what should I do? The lion is charging at me. I need to, run. Like your amygdala would light into action. It would activate your sympathetic nervous system, and all of a sudden adrenaline would flow through your body and you would run. And this happens today. If you are in the middle of a busy street and a car comes whizzing at you, you don't think, oh, I should dodge the car. Like, you jump out of the way immediately because your amygdala activates your fight or flight, adrenaline flows, and you jump even before you think. So the crazy and interesting part about political persuasion and conversations around persuasion is that even though we're not being attacked by a bear or a lion or, all the different threats that we had back in when we were cave people days, just sort of like rolling with our amygdala, your nervous system reacts and other people's nervous systems react to persuasive and conflict-ridden contexts like you're a cave person still. So think about the last time when someone tried to persuade you on any type of topic. I want you to actually take a second and think about how your body felt. Just like root yourself in your body. When I think about, when I even imagine a moment when someone tried to persuade me of something that wasn't my current set of beliefs, my jaw gets a little tighter. My shoulders sort of scrunch up. My knees feel a little tighter together. My feet are clenched on the ground. My whole body starts to react to thinking about a situation where, clenching my teeth. You feel anxiety. That's exactly right. And that's even just remembering an instance where someone was, we're going to break down persuasion even more, attacking, exactly, tense, attacking your stance. It is the same set of bodily reactions that happen because adrenaline is flowing through your body. Your hormones are activating in whole different ways. If and when you're being physically attacked, your heart starts to race. You feel uncomfortable. That's right. So what we're going to try to teach you how to do in this session is what's incredible about human beings, and what I love so much about being a community organizer, is that our nervous systems as humans and as tribes reflect each other and sort of flow back and forth in the same way that our amygdala causes all these things to happen without us even thinking about it. My energy right now and the state of my nervous system is transmitting across the, many oceans that it takes to get all the way from California to Australia. And it's affecting your nervous system and the way that your body reacts to the world right now, and to the inputs, the neurological inputs that my speech and my energy and the way I'm holding my body are kind of catalyzing. So we could just do a normal persuasion training where we talk about sort of, like here's how to build a policy argument that's very specific and effective. But that actually wouldn't get at the underlying challenge to persuasion, which is that when you, as a persuader of anything, whether you're trying to persuade your parents to buy you a car, you're trying to persuade your partner to do the dishes more, you're trying to persuade a voter to support climate change, or a different level of, a better economic model than the one they currently support, you actually need to first really center yourself and make sure that your nervous system isn't giving off signals that cause that person to think that they're in a fight or flight situation, or not even think, but react like they're in a fight or flight situation. So has anyone here heard of the Superman pose or Superwoman pose? You can sort of type in the chat box if you had. It's this sort of cheesy pose that sometimes public speakers, or if you do Toastmasters or anything, they make you sort of do to really center yourself and play powerful. So it turns out when you're regulating your nervous system and you're getting ready to go into a battle, because this is going to be a battle, but we're not going to let our opponents, our persuaders, know that we're in battle, that doing kind of faking it until you make it really is an effective set of tactics at getting your nervous system to relax and set the stage for the person across from you or the people across from you to not respond with fight or flight and have their amygdala set off. So I want you to, in your chair or wherever, however you're watching this, I know I don't think it's cheesy either, but however you're watching this training, I want you to do the super person pose. And then I want you to take a big, deep centering breath. Absolutely. Meditation is fabulously good, and breathing techniques. We're just getting your nervous system not to trigger the other person. All right. And I want you to relax your jaw a bit. Drop your shoulders, make sure they're loose. Plant your feet flat on the ground if you can. And I want you to remember and just take note of any changes that you felt in your body when you sort of assumed these different poses. Did anyone feel different? I materially feel calmer when I just take a deep breath. I plant my feet on the ground. I drop my shoulders. I pay attention to where my jaw is. This is phase one to any type of persuasion technique that you want to engage in, is making sure that your nervous system is settled and ready to basically go into battle. Ryan says, I feel more relaxed for sure. What happens when we go into persuasion conversations in real life, though? How many people, I wish I could have you guys raise your hands in real life, but maybe you can type in the chat box. How many people in reality, when you're about to call or knock on doors of persuadable voters, feel calm and relaxed? Not me. That is like, talking to strangers is terrifying. Absolutely. So this is going to take real effort. It takes real practice, and it's absolutely something that all of us need to do as a fun, and remember as a fundamental component part of persuasion. So some of you might be sitting here and saying, like, listen, Sarah, all your mumbo jumbo, I like Jasmine. Most of me, I just feel desperate and stressed. We're going to talk about why that doesn't work and how to counter it as well. I know you're sort of joking as well, but it's fascinating. There's science on that as well. So some of you are sitting there saying, listen, Sarah, all your scientific mumbo jumbo is nice, but I'm already good at this. I'm a policy expert. And I'm very persuaded by books, and I know how to give books to people such that they are persuaded. Everything is fine. Or I'm so charismatic. I like Cresto. I just jump around and get all my feelings out so I can breathe in and get sorted to go. That's another good way to relax. If that's how you relax yourself, you do you. So long as your nervous system is settled, you're good. So what I found in a decade and a half of teaching persuasion at various different levels of government, of nonprofit, of philanthropy, all the different sectors that we use to try to change our society and our politics, is that there's three basic archetypes of people, three basic sort of like go-to playbooks that each of us resort to when we are put in persuasive conversation sort of context. The first I very much identify with, so I'm going to start. And we tried to break gender normative stereotypes here. So it's Chatty Chad, not Chatty Cathy, it's Chatty Chad. And Chatty Chad just loves to talk to people. Chatty Chad gets a little nervous and chatty and talky when we're in persuasive contexts, and will just share their life story, maybe ask a few questions to the other person, talk quite a lot, and get out their nervous energy that way. How many of you, anyone here, identify as a Chatty Chad? I am like Chatty Chad to the max. That is when I am feeling nervous. Yep, Nina says she does. When I'm feeling nervous, I will just like, and I have to reel that back so that there's space for someone else. All right. I'm wondering, because I don't see a lot of Chatty Chads here, if this next one will resonate for some of you. Policy. Oh yeah, there's a lot flowing in here. There's a little bit of a delay. So now everyone's like, it's me. You see me. The next one is Policy Polly. Policy Polly. I love my Policy Pollys. Policy Polly is wicked smart. She knows every single statistic that is absolutely guaranteed to persuade you that climate change is real, that love is love is love, and marriage should be for everybody, that you name it, she's got the statistics to back it up, and she will convince you with her epic policy. Anyone here a Policy Polly? Ooh, Tor's got some secrets here that we're going to get into. So Policy Polly, super valuable components of Policy Polly we'll want to pull out, but Policy Polly tends to Chatty Chad. When someone Chatty Chads at you, the physical reaction of our nervous systems, if we're the recipients, is to get nervous as well, and to ease into flight. Policy Polly, depending on the person that's on the other side, the nervous system that's on the other side that Policy Polly is trying to persuade, will either cause someone to want to fight back with their own confirmation bias sort of policy stances, or flight because they feel overwhelmed by the flooding of information that's coming their way, and they're not able to absorb all of it. A lot of people are saying, I feel this policy thing. All right, Scripted Sally. Scripted Sally is the last person. We're going to try to get the best of all of these guys. Scripted Sally feels most comfortable when she's got a script, and she just sometimes can get a little too robotic getting in the script. She'll hit all the points, but it's not natural. It doesn't have the charisma that Chatty Chad had. It maybe has like the highlighted policy points that Policy Polly has, but it's not personal. It's not natural. I saw so many of you guys saying earlier on that Danielle is saying, I feel you on the Scripted Sally. Earlier on, I saw a lot of you saying that hearing from someone you trust, hearing from someone who seems like, they've had similar experiences is what persuades you. Scripted Sally doesn't let you access that. And honestly, with Scripted Sally, your amygdala doesn't even fire off. It just goes to sleep. It's not like I need to fight or I need to flight. It's like I need to hang up or I need to close the door. I'm done. So we want to really avoid being Chatty Chad, Policy Polly, Scripted Sally, not you. And I saw Tori earlier saying something, one of the magic words here. So we are going to focus, and we've already talked about some of the physical ways that we get our nervous system primed to not go into our, automatic Policy Polly, Chatty Chad, or Scripted Sally context. And so I want to pull us back. I'm jumping around a little bit here, but I know you guys can follow, into a social context. Because the incredible thing about community organizing is that relationship building is really the same, whether you're doing it in a romantic relationship context, the basic building blocks are the same. Whether you're doing it in a friendship building context, basic building blocks are the same. Whether you're convincing or having a conversation about politics with a stranger, same building blocks. I don't know if any of you have watched the TV show, it's my new obsession, Love on the Spectrum. But I loved how it's about incredible young people who are autistic that go on dates and fall in love for the first time. And there was a really incredible series of scenes where a dating coach kind of draws out exactly what makes a successful first date and maps out the anatomy of a successful first date. So it turns out that the anatomy of a successful first date maps pretty beautifully back to the anatomy of an excellent persuasion conversation. So just let's get like a little loose here. What PG-13 appropriate, please. What are some things that have made first dates successful for all of you? You can just chat in the little chat box. It's so charming. I can't recommend it enough, the show. What are some different things that have made a first date successful for you? I'm just going to awkwardly wait because we're going to pretend we're on a first date until folks type stuff. Marissa says, relaxed conversation. Geraldine says humor. Mark says food. That's a big one. Food gives our nervous systems another input to focus on, so we don't have to be so crazy. Relatability, shared interests, having other things to focus on, smiling, relaxed conversation, two-way conversation, connected interest, an interesting person, common interests, playing Pokemon Go. That's amazing. So these are all gorgeous. You guys are all very charming daters. Well done. An activity to focus on is another good one. Krista's got, when they can guess the right drink you want. Try that in a persuasion conversation. I'm sure it'll go quite well. But the fun thing about persuasion conversations is that, and the interesting thing about first dates is that we can tend to go into the same archetypes, the chatty Kathy, the policy Polly, the scripted Sally on first dates when our nervous system is activated, and we can use the same types of techniques and I'll teach you a framework as well to get our body set up first, and then basically restructure the framework of our interactions so that we're jamming the folks. So I want to share this framework. It's really easy to remember in the United States because our tax collection agency here is called the IRS. So I always tell folks there's two things, that never go away: death and taxes. You'll always remember the IRS. It's really easy. Acquire, relate, share is the framework that we use once we've gotten our nervous system in the right place and we know, what we're correcting against based on what archetype we are. Using acquire, relate, share is how to win first dates and how to really engage meaningfully and authentically and win persuasion conversations. Oh, interesting. Heidi's saying, I'm autistic and enjoyed Love on the Spectrum show, but there's been a fair bit of criticism from the autistic community about how it doesn't represent the scope of autistic people very well. That's fascinating. That's good to know. And then being in a relaxed environment. I mean, that also translates to the relaxed environment. I heard what people said about, maybe having food. I can't really imagine bringing food to somebody's door when you're door knocking and trying to have persuasion conversations, but it is an interesting reminder that, at house parties that are non-political is a great time to engage in political conversation. There's a reason in the US we have Thanksgiving and that we all talk about political conversations at Thanksgiving. I'm sure, you guys have whatever holidays all of you celebrate. There are many different instances with family where when people are eating, when they're sort of in a more relaxed scenario, engaging in persuadable conversations is a bit easier. So let's get to this framework: inquire, relate, share. The number one biggest thing that all three of those archetypes and all the ones I didn't name fail to do, that Tori named beautifully in the chat here, is inquiry, asking questions. So we're going to go back to brain chemistry for a second. What happens in your brain? Anyone know what happens in your brain when you are asked a question? I don't actually know the scientific answer, but I just did that and I asked you the question because it makes you pause, and you can notice that you probably paused and you thought, and maybe you panicked a little bit, but it changed the dynamic. Yeah, your brain explodes. It changed the dynamic of me just talking at you. I mean, I know that Nina and crew did an incredible job organizing this amazing whole long series of presentations, but I'm sure there were one or two people, maybe the politicians, who just talked at you and didn't ask questions. Your entire orientation towards the person that you're listening to changes when they ask questions. Dominic thinks there's a hippocampus response. It makes you think and you feel validated potentially. Absolutely. So the number one thing we're going to do, and we're going to actually get into some practice sessions in a second. The number one thing that you have to start training yourself to do is, instead of blah, 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 telling your story, or blah, 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 giving policy facts, or blah, 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 sharing the script that you have to stop, pause, and think about, even before you go into the conversation, how you can ask as many questions as possible while still relating and sharing, which we'll get to in a second, but not having it be so peppered with questions that the person turns off and they go into fight or flight that way. So we only start with inquire because that is the number one thing that we don't do naturally when we're in a persuasion conversation. So we'll model this in a second. All right, relate. Anyone have, oh, interesting. Jerry says, originally from the US, I find that there's less overt political discussion here in social settings, certainly less so over holiday meal settings. That's fascinating. That would be really hard for me. My family just talks about politics 100% of the time. So it's really hard for new people who are dating my brothers or sisters. So let's talk about relate. So we talked about this in the dating context. What might relating do to the dynamics of the conversation with this stranger that you're having? Why might relating be an important part of this puzzle that we're putting together? If you're thinking, channeling someone who's like, you're trying to keep off the edge of fight or flight, what does showing that you relate and connect to them do to their nervous system, or to their amygdala's sort of desire to jump off the ledge and sort of fight or flight? Ali says it makes them realize they're not alone. It shows some similarities. Relating is reassuring. Oh, that's beautiful. I want that on a t-shirt. It's relaxing and comforting. Yeah. The biggest thing, and I think Oprah said this best, but the two biggest things we want in life are to feel seen and to feel heard. And we want that from strangers. We want that from family members. We want that from loved ones. We want that in political contexts. We want that in commercial context. There's a reason that really relatable commercials sell more shampoo bottles than strange ones with inaccessibly, glossy people. You have to find that right balance of being something that folks want to be and being being aspirational and being accessible. I'm the same as you, says Scott Harrison. Yes, absolutely. And the conversation, Jerry, this is so big. That when you relate to someone, the conversation goes from potentially being a threat and an attack to someone's basic set of values or who they are or what they stand for, to being a, hey, I'm the same as you. And we're the same in these ways. So we're going to model that in a second and kind of give you a chance to practice that as well. All right, share. So this one, I got to come up, someday I'll come up with a better word than share. Share is not just sharing who you are or what you care about, because you're doing that in the relating section. Sharing is your final sort of building block that allows you to connect the questions that you've asked the person across from you, that's given you important data that allows you to relate to them authentically and really connect to them and sort of turn off their fight or flight. The share is the final building block that connects that data you learned about them, the data you shared about yourself, or the data you related about yourself, to the topic or the movement, or the elected official, whatever the context is, that you're trying to get them to take action around or get them to change their opinion on. So yeah, synthesize is a good one maybe. Or like connect it to, you want to connect who you are and who they are to this issue. So it's like story of self, story of us. This is the story of now. This is the story of this issue and this moment that's at hand. So I'm going to pull Angie up. Angie, I think you might still be in the audience, and we'll give a second to get the technology going. Angie is going to be a persuadable voter alongside me. And if we have a tech problem with Angie, I think Nina might step in to be my buddy. And oh, look, there's Angie. Amazing. Thank you, Angie. You are so wonderful to be a volunteer here with us. So Angie, you're going to be a persuadable voter, and I'm going to be a righteous organizer who is, you're going to call the shot. I think we should do a phone call instead of maybe knocking on the door. Let's do a phone call because that's harder. And I am calling you out of the blue, and I have to persuade you on a given topic. And I want the audience here to give us the topic. Make it really hard for me. I'm an organizer. I don't even know what topic I'm persuading this voter on. Angie, you're a voter. Get yourself in a voter mindset. I want you to be like a realistic voter, not too difficult. You know, if there's like a spectrum of 1 through 5, you're an undecided voter. You're a 3. You're not a strong supporter. You're not leading support. You're really, truly undecided. What issue do you guys want me to persuade Angie on? Nikki says climate change. Well, wait, we'll get some real, this is democracy. Universal basic income. That's an interesting one. Wow, UBI. I'm gonna have to brush off my policy chops on this. Does the universe exist? I'm not smart enough for that. All right, we got a bunch of votes for UBI. I don't know UBI that well, free education, but I think I should take that challenge. I think I should, I think so that we're really pushing up against this policy side that I need to know the policy perfectly in order to be persuasive. I'm gonna take UBI. And you guys are going to have to forgive me if I say anything wrong. We're just going to roll with it. And Angie, you're a voter, and I'm calling with, give me a name of a UBI. Oh my God, Santa's not real and she disclosed this to kids. That's so evil. You guys are charming and funny. I want you guys to give a name of an organization that I'm representing. Should I be the UBI? I'm a volunteer with the UBI Coalition. All right, we're going to say I'm a volunteer with the UBI Coalition. Okay, Angie, I'm going to call you. And team, I want you to, everyone in the background, when I do something that is inquire, relate, or share, one of those, when I do something that kind of checks the box of an inquiry, checks the box of relating, or checks the box of sharing, I want you to just type that word in. So when I ask a good question, say inquire, inquire. I want to see just like a flurry of everybody sort of voting and saying, you did inquiry, you did inquiry. We're going to debrief it afterwards and talk about what I could do better and what I did well. But let's have you voting and sort of showing that you're following along throughout. So, all right, ring, 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 ring.
Hello.
Hi, is this Angie Judd?
Yeah, who's this?
Hi, Angie. This is Sara El-Amine. I'm actually a neighbor of yours. I live just up the street, and I was calling to see if you had a moment to talk about the universal basic income.
Yeah. How long will it take?
You know, I know it's around dinner time, and I think I've seen you at some of the school meetings, the same school meetings that I'm at. So we can knock this out in 5 minutes. And if you want to have a further conversation, you know, I'll make sure you know where I live. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's fine. Sure.
Okay, great. Well, listen, I'm a volunteer with the UBI Coalition, and I am calling undecided voters because I'm making this part up, guys, because I don't. But I'm calling undecided voters because there is going to be an election in 2 months, and UBI is on the ballot, and it's an issue that we're trying to understand more about, so we can have persuasive, or so that we can build a coalition that wins at the election. So I'm curious if you know where you stand on UBI.
I feel like I'm not really sure what it is. It can't, like, a universal basic income kind of makes like self-explanatory, but I'm not really sure what it is. Could you explain?
It's a really strange term. I totally agree. I had the same reaction myself when I first heard of it. Would it be helpful if I dropped off some literature maybe tomorrow on my way to drop off the kids at school?
Sure.
Okay, and I can tell you just a couple sentences about it right now. Basically, the idea is that, you know, we have our social safety nets, but they're not doing enough to really make sure that that every single Australian has equal opportunity access to resources and funds to do with them as they like. And so if we all are given sort of the same basic building blocks of income to make choices with them as we may choose, it could really equalize a lot of the different inequities that we see in our society. So I didn't do a great job of sort of explaining the policy of it, but does that somewhat make sense as a basic idea?
Yeah, I think so.
As I talk about that, what types of hesitation might you have around supporting a policy like that?
I guess like how would we pay for it?
Yeah, I had that hesitation too. Absolutely. So elected official blah 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 has a really incredible one pager on their website about exactly how we pay for it and how it cuts out the need for all other types of social support sort of more downstream when people are really in dire straits, and it actually saves us money long term. Could I shoot you that link or maybe drop it off when I drop off the literature tomorrow?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, wonderful. Well, listen, I know I said it will only take 5 minutes. This election is coming up pretty soon, though, and I would love to drop off the literature and then just be your buddy as you make this important decision about where to vote on this ballot initiative in a few weeks. Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, that would be fine, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking time. I know it's a Thursday evening and you got a lot going on, and I'm really excited to keep chatting. It was great to put a voice to the name and the address.
No worries. Thanks so much for the call.
All right. Thank you, Angie. I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
All right. Good job, Angie. Round of applause for Angie. Woo, that was hard. You guys saw I was really BSing on like, here are the policy facts of UBI. But it's a good exercise to take on issues that you really don't know that much about, because you really turn off policy poly. There's a side of me that is policy polyish. Did anyone see my chatty Cathy coming out? Yes, you sort of did. There was a couple of chatty Cathy moments. So Angie, I want to have you debrief. You did an incredible job being a persuadable voter. I like what Ryan's saying. It feels similar in some ways to feel, felt, found for closing sales. Love that. That's one I'm going to keep. Angie, how did you, we're going to start with your nervous system, because that's always where our foundation here. How did you feel in your body when I was talking to you? Like what, I'm going to do what my therapist does this all the time. She's like, tell me where your shoulders are. Tell me how your neck felt. Where were your shoulders? Were they up? Were they down? Were they medium?
They're a little bit up.
A little up. Yep.
Yeah.
Because you're getting persuaded. Someone's talking to you about a thing. How about your jaw? Did you notice your jaw being sort of tight or loose or somewhere in between?
Probably in between.
In between. Do you know where you hold your tension in your body? Do you tend to hold it in your eyebrows? Do you hold it in your stomach?
I think definitely in my stomach.
In your stomach. Yeah. Okay, cool. It's a good thing to know about yourself, where you hold your tension. And how did your stomach feel when we were talking?
A little bit tight at first, because I was like, I don't know what to expect from this.
Yeah. Was there a point in time where you felt yourself relax, or a couple points in time?
I think you did a really good job at like saying that you'd provide more information, but then like relating it back to like things that were really easy to understand. So it didn't feel too much information in one go. So I think it helped relax.
And this is a sort of weird question, but the way I interacted with you, what did it make you feel about yourself? Was there any story you could have told yourself about who you were based on how I treated you?
I felt quite seen in,
Yeah,
because you're
good.
talking about like, I seen you at the school and like all of this stuff, and it
Yep.
felt like there was like an assumption that you knew who I was, which was interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So this is an old organizer. I don't want to call it a trick because it's not something you should do dishonestly, but in the relating component, there's 3 or 4 different things you can pull out of your hat that are just immediate relate, like buzzwords or immediate relate buzz phrases. The first is if you authentically live close to somebody, even if you're on the phone far away and you can't see them at all, and it's like the most difficult persuasion context imaginable, mentioning that you live close by to them, and research has borne this out, actually causes them to trust you more because you are more similar to them. And if you can mention if there's any other overlap between your experiences that like you can authentically and honestly mention, you know, I've sort of made up the like, oh, I think our kids go to the same school. That also will help someone feel seen. They'll help them trust you more. And they'll help sort of calm their feeling of being attacked by a stranger, which is what persuasion can feel like if you don't do that. So wonderful. Well, I want to ask you just 1 or 2 more questions, then we're going to let you go and we're going to have you guys do some silent practice. On the share portion, how would it have felt if I pushed you to make a decision in that about where you stood in that one conversation?
Felt really hard because, particularly for being like on the fence, I didn't know that much about it. It would have felt a bit pushy.
Yeah, it would have felt pushy. Okay, great. Angie, anything else that you want to share about that experience being a persuaded person, or your key takeaways?
I really liked that you followed up with like, I'll be your buddy ongoing, and like providing that ongoing action, and made the call feel a lot more genuine about like wanting to support someone to make a decision and like be there ongoing about the issue instead of just like getting through your call list. So
gorgeous. Yeah. And that's what we as organizers do, right? Is like, if we're doing our job right, we have a dedicated turf and dedicated people that we can go back to over and over again. And I'll talk about that in a second too. Well, Angie, round of applause virtually for Angie. That was excellent. You were a great persuadable voter, and you were very patient with my my meandering explanation of UBI. And so one thing I want to point out to folks here is that I think I said this in the beginning, the average person takes 7 times of hearing something in order to learn it. So to expect that someone's going to be persuaded in one conversation is unrealistic. And to expect that someone's going to take a half hour to hear something 7 times from you as a stranger, or even as someone you know, is also unrealistic. So the reason that we, in every single type of campaign, have so many different conversations with many different people, sometimes with the same people, and do so much voter contact. We do so much, if we're doing issue advocacy, we do so much elected official, you know, contacting the same elected official with lots of different inputs, lots of different, you know, constituents coming and telling them stories. We put ads surrounding, you know, in their local newspaper, so they see those as well. We try to use as many different venues as possible to hit someone 7 times so that they can be persuaded. So this isn't a one and done, but if you can get your foot in the door and sort of make a first impression on an issue, you can absolutely, and I've seen it happen over and over again, move people astronomical distances on issues that matter to you. So I'm going to give you guys a second, and I want you to take a pen and paper or a notebook, and just take a second, and I'm going to go back to my slide with the framework, and I want you to imagine a real persuasion context that you will have to face sometime soon. So maybe it's personal, maybe it's professional, maybe it's movement related, and I want you to think about how you might build, inquire, relate, share with in a generic way with imaginary key stakeholders, whether those people are voters or there's someone in your personal life. What are some building blocks on an issue you care about that you could write out that might help you acquire, relate, share? So if I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you're doing climate change and you're doing it on your own. And you're thinking about convincing your father to share your perspective on the immediacy and doom and gloom of the climate change crisis that we are globally enmeshed in. What questions might you ask to get data and really sort of make your father feel seen and heard and get, the data you need to relate? What tidbits might you share that allow you to relate to your father? And then what call to action or call to this moment might you tie to those questions you asked, the data you got from him, and the bits about yourself that you authentically shared to really tie a ribbon around this conversation? And if you can't think of something, feel free to use that example. So we're going to give you guys 3 minutes to just remember, start with your body, do your Superman if you need to. Take a deep breath, get in that persuasion nervous system set up. And we're going to come back in 3 minutes and we'll debrief. I'm not going to play music, but I'm going to mute myself for a sec. If you haven't already, we'll come back. And while folks are wrapping, because there's a little bit of a delay, did anybody discover something interesting when you wrote down your inquiry questions, the ways you might relate, and what you might share? there's actually, we're talking so much about neuroscience. There's this whole set of different processing mechanisms that happen inside of your brain when you write something down instead of just saying it. So different people have different learning styles, and you should totally take a learning style quiz or a set of them if you can. There's some great ones online. But for some folks, writing these down ahead of time or preparing them ahead of time is going to be so much more helpful than anything else. For other folks, practicing with somebody, if you're a kinesthetic learner, is going to really help you get the bad stuff out and work through the good stuff. Some people might need to actually flow chart it out if you're visual. Cresta said it's usually from not knowing. So there's a gap. And then Nikki says, yes, I learned better if I write it down. Amazing. So here's the jam. We're going to go to this next slide, and then we're going to make sure we have, whoops, give me 1 second. Here's official practice. In any type of campaign context, and frankly, in life itself, our single most precious resource is our time. And you could spend your whole life sort of bashing your head up against the wall of trying to persuade people on the support score spectrum who are 5s, who are strongly against your position. But what we want to do with these different persuasion practices is really spend our time on 3s, people who are right in the middle and susceptible to moving over to our side, and 2s, people who are like leaning strong support for us, but need to really be turned into champions. There's so many different issue advocacy movements. I think marriage is a really fascinating one in Australia, given that it's so recent for all of you, marriage equality. And it's very interesting in the US because I think we had similar and different dynamics, where just focusing on 1s, 2s, and 3s isn't enough to win immediately and to build a movement where people have a lot of confirmation bias and they don't necessarily want to be persuaded. But what's so incredible and what's been so inspiring to me about watching the marriage equality movement in Australia, watching it play out in the US, watching so many other movements, I think gun violence prevention has been really fascinating to watch in between the two countries, a totally different way that both countries have handled it, is how powerful hundreds of thousands of activists and advocates hammering away at 4s and 5s and sort of like trudging them over to 3s over time has been in fundamentally changing circumstances for tens of millions of human beings in really material and gorgeous ways. So, you know, I start this slide off by saying, don't waste your time on 4s and 5s. Your goal in most campaigns is to really focus on the 2s and 3s and persuade. But I want to close with sort of the opposite of that, which is that, yes, like in short-lived campaigns, 2s and 3s are our most important folks. But what's so magical about community organizing, what's so magical about activism and about the commitment to having 7 different conversations with someone who's a voter and a valued human being and should be seen and heard and brought on to the side of justice and to the side of equality, as so many as you are standing for across all your issues, is that you're brave enough, and you have been brave enough to really take on some of those 4s and 5s and just hammer away at them over time. So I am really honored and thrilled to have gotten to spend this time with you. We have a couple minutes left for questions if you have any big ones remaining. But I hope if you take nothing away from this, inquire, relate, share, maybe you'll forget that acronym in 2 seconds flat, smiling over the phone, really making sure that your nervous system is ready to mirror or to project onto someone else. It can do wonders, and it can really change so much about the way you engage with people across from you and authentically shift folks. So with that, I want to open it up for questions. What else are you guys wondering about? What still feels hard or intractable? I'm glad you thought it was fabulous, Nikki. I had a lot of fun with you guys. You're very engaged chatters. Ooh, and I'm going to read some of these interesting takeaways. Tor said, I was trying to think about, in the writing example, I was trying to think about using different language. So questions that weren't using labels that would trigger people, i.e. nature rather than climate change. That's a really good one. Open-ended questions are really helpful in getting somebody to avoid their amygdala firing off as well. And Geraldine said, I appealed to his own experiences and shared family experiences that were lovely. That's a really great way to get somebody to sort of drop into themselves. Awesome. All right, well, I don't see any questions coming in, but I do see lots of thank yous. I will thank you guys back so deeply. Crest is saying, is there a way to adapt the archetypes depending on the context? That's a good question. I mean, I think that the archetypes they tend to be like something that we fall into regardless of the context, whether we're on the phone or we're in person. But you might notice about yourself that when you're on the phone, you tend to be more Polly or scripted Sally. And when you're in person, you are more chatty Kathy. So it's something more to notice about yourself. Oh, and I'm so glad Maddie said this will help me with a big meeting with a politician next week about young women's employment in the wake of COVID. Rockin'. All right, gang. Well, with that, I am going to give you and our epic organizers 2 minutes back to close this out. This has been an absolute joy. I wish you guys so much luck, and I wish I could be there in person, but someday soon, when we've all convinced people to wear masks and be socially distant at scale using these persuasion skills. So, Nina, back to you.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful way to wrap up. We really appreciate you staying up this late. So go to bed and get your rest and get on with your wonderful activities. And there is one comment here, if you can provide more detail about the resources, some resources on Inquire Approach.
Oh, I made it up. So it's something I used in all, when I was training all the Obama campaigners. It's sort of just a thing that I made up that works really well and has won tons of elections and issue advocacy fights. But you can totally search if you want. There's tons and tons of research on fight or flight. If you just Google fight or flight or the sympathetic nervous system. And then there are some good books on persuasion that I'm blanking on the titles of, but really if you Google, you can find some good books on persuasion. They don't get into necessarily all the political context of things, but it's a really cool topic. So, and I loved Ryan's sales stuff. I'm going to Google that myself. All right, gang, I'm going to sign off. What a joy.
Thank
cheers.
you so much. Bye. Well, thank you so much to everyone for what is the biggest week of my life so far. And I feel like many other people have had a really huge week. This has been so wonderful to bring this event to you. If you have 5 minutes to stick around, I'm just going to say a little closing just to wrap up everything. This summit was about bringing together the community of people that deeply care about young people, that care about making sure that young people have the opportunities to live the lives that they want, and creating a world in which all young people can thrive. And there is 1,000+ of you that have come along this week to engage on this and to support young people and work with young people too, because a lot of the audience has been young people as well. So it's been amazing to be able to facilitate this kind of intersectional and intergenerational experience. We definitely, from the National Youth Commission perspective, we wanted to facilitate intersectional conversations throughout the week. We wanted them to be with people with different identities and experiences and ways of interpreting the world and the problems that we're facing, and to be leading those conversations as well. And I'm so thrilled. I was just looking at the numbers before we came to this plenary, and we actually had more than 110 young people on the program speaking and presenting and performing and sharing their ideas and their knowledge and expertise. So that's just incredible to reflect on, and also a further 60+ people of all ages and identities and experiences presenting. So it's really been a phenomenal experience for us to bring you this. I certainly think that the number one takeaway from the week has been about the importance of creating opportunities for young people to have a voice and to share challenges and solutions based on their perspectives on life. I think that's the number one thing we can take away from this week. I also think political engagement is really important. I love that Sarah was here to really kind of take us from this like conversation dialogue space and into, well, what can we actually do now that we might have some ideas and solutions? What are we going to do with them, and how are we going to move forward in the future? One thing that I want to say is I really feel like this is just the beginning, these conversations, and that we've brought together this beautiful community, and that it doesn't have to end here. We all have so much more work to do to create a fairer, safer, more inclusive and sustainable world for young people, and also for everyone in society. So from here, what can you do? Certainly, we've done recordings of all the sessions, and we will do our best to distribute them to you in the coming weeks. We, of course, need to get consent from all of the performers and presenters, so wherever we can, we will. But please stay tuned on this, because we're not sure how we're going to do this, but it's definitely going to happen. If you want to keep in touch with the National Youth Commission Australia, you might have seen at the start of this week, we put forward what our concept is for a new deal for young people, and we called it the Youth Futures Guarantee. You can go and have a read of that on our website, and over the next 3 months, we intend on taking everyone's feedback and shaping it and changing it as we need to. So we want to kind of put this to the public and to also our leaders and say that this is a possible national plan for young people everywhere. So if you want to be involved in that, we are welcoming anyone who has thoughts on this to get in touch. We'll also be working with Democracy in Colour and Young Campaigns to see how we can create a campaign on this. And we will also continue consultations with different cohorts of young people on the impacts of education, income, housing, employment, and so much more during COVID-19. So you can sign up to our newsletter, you can go to our website, you can follow us online, at Youth Commission Oz on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter at NYC Inquiry AU. But we will follow up with some emails anyway, wrapping up and giving you recordings and that sort of thing. Obviously, I'd love to thank our sponsors. We couldn't have done this event without them, so we really appreciate it. City of Melbourne, Australian Catholic University, SDA Union, Salvation Army, Seeker, that's the Careers Industry Council of Australia, Foundation for Young Australians, and Jesuit Social Services. Also, big thanks to Democracy in Colour, Mayan, and Young Campaigns, who supported us as well. You would probably be shocked with the magnitude of this event was brought to you by the tiniest team, and that's of NYCA staff and volunteers. So a huge, huge thank you to our volunteers who helped us all week delivering the event and running your rooms. That's Zara Sully, Kryza Ko, Joyce Lee, Norma Murad, Riyad Amalki, Violet Burgess, Gaida Mutaha, Truthi Rajan, Rihanna Schwenke, I think, and Sarah McGovern. Thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. Also, gotta breathe. I also want to take a moment to thank the incredible NYCA staff that I'm lucky enough to be working with every week. And that's Alex, Dominic, Matt, Keith, and Dev. You guys have done an amazing job. Also to our beautiful co-designers, Tadak from White House and Sneha from Democracy in Colour. And to our commissioners, thank you so much as well, in particular Sophie, Finbar, and Jessie for their contributions to the event. But the biggest thank you of all has to go to our event captain, the person that steered the virtual ship and kept us sailing, and has certainly put in more than enough hours to probably take leave for the rest of the year. And that's Marissa Garner. Marissa, you are absolutely incredible person, and we wouldn't be here without you. So thank you so much, Marissa. Everything you've done is just blows my mind. And also thank you, the 1,000+ people that came to this event and showed up for young people this week. We wouldn't be here without you too. So thank you so much. Yeah, it's kind of blown away. It's been a huge week for us. We're all very tired, and we're going to certainly have a celebration after this. The last thing I wanted to say is that, you know, after this huge week, I think the thing we must remember is that everything that has happened here this week has happened on stolen land. You've all been tuning in from different stolen lands across the country and perhaps internationally as well. Settler colonialism is an ongoing structure, and sovereignty was never ceded. This is a fact in our lives here, and you know there is no justice without First Nations justice. There is no future without a healthy planet, and there is nothing about us without us. So please, thank you again, and we hope to see you soon. Bye.
The week like keep you got me quick. The week like keep you got me extra.